everybody, it's Josie here, and I'm going to do my September wrap up for the month, as well as my favourite thing of the month that isn't a book. Actually, there's two, but anyway, we'll get into that. So I'm going to start off with the readathon that I took part in this month, which was the contemporayathon. Now, I did do a wrap-up video for that separately, so if you want kind of a more in-depth ramble on what I thought of these books, then go ahead and have a look at that, but I'll just do a quick wrap-up of the ones that I read as part of that readathon. So the first one that I read was actually very happily already on my TBR for the month, and that is this one over here. It is Disobedience by Naomi Alderman. Anybody that's watched my other video talking about how much I love the power, rambling about how much I love the power, lovely over there, power, will know that I was really looking forward to reading this. I loved the writing of the other one. And this didn't disappoint. So this actually, for the Contemporayathon, was in the category Read a 5-star prediction book. And although it wasn't exactly 5 stars, I would say more 4, probably 4.5 if I read it again. I really, really liked this book. I love the representation. So I actually used this for 2 categories for the readathon. So the other category was Read a Contemporary, a Diverse Contemporary. And this one has... the main characters are 2 lesbian bisexual women. It's set in the very orthodox Jewish community as well, which is not something that I've read too much about, and was really fascinating to read about the customs of this community. So if you don't know anything about that, it's really, really interesting. It's well written. Again, it makes you think. It makes you think about themes of power and relationships and women and men, and how, you know, power may be unequal, and all of those good things. So I love this book. I would definitely recommend it. Go out and read it. It's fantastic, and yeah, 4.5 stars. Now, the next 2 books I don't have because they've already gone to the charity shop, which probably give you an indication of how I felt about them. They are The Life and Death of Ella Black. I can't remember the title. The Life and Death of Ella Black. And this one I did go on a bit of a rant on in the other video. It was in the category Choose Something That Was a Dark or Spooky Contemporary. And the premise of this book sounded like it was going to be really good. So it's about a girl named Ella Black. She has another voice in her head, and she calls this voice Bella. And this voice is very dark. She's afraid of this voice. So she spends a lot of time repressing it. So that was really interesting. And then also, one day while she's at school, there's a couple of weeks before her 18th birthday, she gets taken out of school by her parents and whisked off to Rio. And nobody really knows why. So all of those things could have been really, really good. I won't go into more of a rant, but it wasn't that well executed. And yeah. It just scraped to 3 stars for me, probably 2.5. It had insta-love in it, which really dropped the rating. So I think I might have said 3 in my other video. I'm kind of rethinking that, probably 2.5. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy it. Maybe someone else will. The other book that's gone off to the charity shop is one called The Readers of Broken Wheel Recommend. Now, this one wasn't bad. It was quite sweet. So the premise is you've got these 2 characters, Sarah and Amy. And Sarah is in Sweden and Amy is in the United States, and they've been corresponding via letters and their love of literature and books, and they kind of recommend and send books back and forth, which I thought was a really sweet, lovely premise. And Sarah comes to the United States to visit Amy, and that's kind of where the meat of the story kicks off. And it was very sweet. I love anything that it talks about a love of books in a book. It's just something that I like. There was a romance in here that I didn't particularly like, so I ended up giving it 3 stars because I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. It was very middle of the road for me, and hence it's gone off to find a new home. So those again were 2 of the books from the Contemporayathon. Then I have 2 more from that. So the first one that I was actually, again, really excited that I could actually get to read before I had actually scheduled to read it, if that makes sense, is this one over here called Empathy by Sarah Schulman. This is a very interesting book. The writing is interesting. I'll definitely be picking up, or trying to pick up, more books by Sarah Schulman because I got this one in a charity shop actually. It focuses on two characters, one called Doc and one called Anna O. And Anna O is a lesbian, and she's talking about her life and her loves and finding herself amongst her family. And then you've got Doc, who's struggling with a lot of those same issues, and he's a psychiatrist, a psychoanalyst, and he's talking to his patients and working through his own kind of life and thoughts. But there's a massive twist at the end of this book, and obviously I'm not going to give it away. And I didn't see it coming. So I want to read this again to see if I see it coming. Because, yeah, maybe I want to see if the signs are there. They probably are. I just didn't realise. So I really love this. This one I actually chose for the category pick a book that's got orange on the cover. I mean, this book has every colour under the sun on it. So that was that one. And 4-star, recommend it. Definitely will read it again. And the next one, again, I was happy that the Contemporayathon got me to read early, was this one over here, Ruby Fruit Jungle. This is very much, I guess, kind of a lesbian classic literature novel. It, again, is about Molly. She is strong, she's strong-willed, she lives life on her own terms. It's basically about her and her life and her loves. And I really enjoyed reading it. It was fun in parts, it made me laugh. It was sweet. Again, it brought up certain questions about sexuality, about being who you are, kind of finding your own truth, which I really loved. Again, 4-star read for me, keeping it, will read it again, definitely loved it. So those are all of the books from the Contemporayathon, and then I'll move on to my TBR for the month. Now, I had 7 on there originally, and I got through 6. One of the other ones is going to be in my reads for October, because it actually fits one of the categories for a readathon that I'm doing. I'm doing quite a few readathons in October, so I've carried that over, but then I added another book in, so we're still even Stevens. So without further ado, I'll go through those. Now, you might remember I said I was trying to read lots of sort of spooky-ish books to prepare myself for October. And the first one I picked up is this one over here called The Wicked Cometh. Now, how gorgeous is this cover? And I think I said this in my TBR. It is beautiful. Look at this. It's hardback. It feels really nice. It feels like one of those old kind of books that you would get. And on the front it says A Novel of Darkest London, and it really suits that. And if you look inside, it's got these gorgeous maps, these kind of old style maps, the typeface, some more maps in the back of London, and it really kind of evokes that feel. So it's set in 1831. It's about there's 2 main characters, 2 women. One is from a noble family, well, not that noble, but let's say from a rich family, and she is unmarried. She lives with her uncle and her brother, and at that time you weren't unmarried and you didn't have children and you were seen as a bit of an outcast. I suppose she is. And then the other main character in the story is a girl from quite a regular middle class family, and her parents die and she's sent off to go and live with her aunt and uncle, who basically live in the slums in London. And through certain circumstances they meet. And there is obviously another element of the story where people are disappearing, and they work together, these 2 characters, to find out what's happened to these missing people. And that's quite dark, sort of almost like a murder mystery element to it. There's a romance between the 2 women that I loved, that was beautiful and very beautifully written. So it has that element. I really love this book. God, how would I describe it? I would describe it, if you love historical fiction, which actually I'm not such a fan of, but I really, really like this. So I would say it's kind of a combination of Sarah Waters meets a bit of Sherlock Holmes, maybe meets a bit of a horror story. It's that kind of thing. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed the story. It is so beautiful. It's going to take pride of place on my shelves. It's not going anywhere. Any book that looks this nice can never be given away. So I really like that. So that was, again, it was a 4-star read for me. Loved it. Then the next book, oh, okay. So the next book is The Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter. Now, I think I said in my TBR that I thought this was going to be a bit of a magical realism book, and it's not. And actually, it is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. And there's definitely some trigger warnings in here, which I didn't actually see coming. So I would say there's a trigger warning for abuse, for child abuse. There is a trigger warning for rape, sexual abuse as well. So I would, you know, if any of those things trigger you, I wouldn't recommend it. Angela Carter's writing is very good, as always. And the story is basically these 3 kids are orphaned. Their parents die and they're sent off to live with their uncle, who is a horrible, horrible man, and his wife and his wife's 2 brothers. And yeah, the uncle runs a toy shop. He makes toys, but he's vile. And I have such mixed feelings about this book because the writing is good, and it obviously is a topic that needs to be discussed. Child abuse is very real. And I suppose this kind of behaviour and just abuse generally is very real, and it's something we need to talk about, but it's not gonna... I struggled with it because it made me... It was not a happy book. It made me feel really sad. It made me feel angry. And I just don't know what rating to give it. I mean, I suppose a 3-star, but a 3-star, but I mean, I didn't have a good time reading it, and I'm definitely not going to read it again for that reason, but it's still, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's that one. Moving on. The next one, happily, is a lot lighter and a lot fluffier, even though it's called The Wicked Deep. It's The Wicked Deep. Now, this one, real anecdote from the last one, it is... I was actually interested to read this because I love magical kind of witches and anything like that. I love the premise of this book that there might be sort of some killer mermaids almost in it. And I'm also a massive sucker for American teen anything. So I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm currently actually re-watching the entire series of Buffy the Vampire Slayer because it is the best TV program ever made. So I love all of that. I love like the Scream movies. I like all kind of just teenage horror, teenage high school, American teenage life, which was so far removed from my own high school experience. Probably that's why I like it so much. So I like all these books, despite my age. And a lot of people said that they didn't enjoy this, but I had a bloody good time reading it. It was fun. It's basically this town of Sparrow, this little town of Sparrow in the United States. And back in, I think it was the 1800s, 3 sisters moved to this town, and they opened a kind of a sort of a potions, cosmetic shop, a bit like in Practical Magic. They were also very beautiful, and they proceeded to seduce a lot of the men, particularly a lot of the married men in the town. Town didn't like that at all, and they ended up drowning these 3 girls for being witches. And they say that they weren't witches. Town maintains they were. Anyway, cut to present day, and what happens now in this town is that they have this season, as they call it, and weirdly tourists come to see this. Odd. But anyway, in this time period, this month's time period, these 3 girls come back out of the deep, and they inhabit the bodies of 3 current girls in the town, and these 3 girls then proceed to drown 3 or more boys every season, and this happens every year. And like I said, people come as tourists to come and see, which is very odd. Hey, let's go watch people die. But anyway, so there's also a love story in it, which is very insta-love. Again, it's something I don't like, but actually I could forgive it in this book because the rest of it was fun, and I enjoyed it. I had a great time reading it, and I would give this 3.5 stars actually, without hesitation. I thought it was fun, and I would kind of recommend it if you like that sort of thing like me. Just ignore the love story. But anyway, I enjoyed that. Then the next one was also, it's very light, it's very fun. It's this one here. It's called Man Repeller by Leandra Medine. And if you don't know who Leandra Medine is, she is a writer and a blogger, and she actually has a site called Man Repeller that is all about fashion. And this book, I probably wouldn't have picked it up now anymore, but it's actually been sitting on my shelves, I think, for 2 or more years. Probably more, and I thought I'd need to get around to reading it. And her fashion style, as she likes to call it, is she says she's a man repeller because she has things about her and about her fashion look that is more interested in being cool and quirky, and I think like a lot of girls are, and they're not interested particularly in what men think of it, and men just don't understand fashion. Anyway, that's her that's her take on it. She's very funny. She has a very funny way of writing. Each chapter actually uses a piece of clothing to evoke the memories. So she chronicles her life by the clothes that she wore at that particular time, which is a fun element. Like I said, it made me laugh. It was fun. It was light. It was fluffy. It's very cute. 3.5 stars as well on this one. Obviously not going to keep it, but enjoyed it, and I'm going to send it to the charity shop, and hopefully someone else can enjoy it and have a laugh. So that's that one. Then the next one. I was so excited about reading this book. So if Disobedience was my 5-star prediction for the contemporayathon, this was my other 5-star prediction for the month, and that is The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. This is the prequel to Practical Magic that I have been waiting for, and I wasn't disappointed. I loved it. I love Practical Magic. I love Alice Hoffman. I love her writing. I think it's beautiful. She writes so lyrically. It's almost poetic sometimes, her writing and her descriptions. It's very beautiful. And I really like Practical Magic. I love the film and I love the book. And anybody that's seen or read both, the film and the book start and end the same. The middle bit, totally different. But my favourite part of the film particularly is the aunts. And this is a origin story for the aunts, basically. So it tracks them from when they're kids and how they grow up and how they end up in the town, running the store and kind of dealing all magic potions and with the ladies' worries of the town. And it is beautiful. It's beautifully written. It has obviously that magical element, but it has some very human topics. It talks about love and life and who to trust and finding your own path and being who you are, being authentic to yourself, which I think is such an important message. It's just, you know, be who you are. And it's just lovely, and I would absolutely give it 5 stars. If I was judging it by the cover, that is a horrible cover. I'm sorry. I don't it's just horrible. So what I might be doing actually is terrible, but be getting rid of the hardback and buying the UK softback, which the cover I really prefer. I know that's terrible, but you know, ignore the cover. Contents of the book is fantastic. 5 stars. If you love practical magic, if you like magical realism, if you like Alice Hoffman, definitely read it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Yeah, 5-star read. Loved it. And then the final book that actually ended up being added to my list of books for the month is this one over here. It's called Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Now this one, I think I picked it up because it was recommended by a YouTuber, and I thought it sounded really interesting. It's basically about kick-ass fighting women, and you know, I love that. I love anything that's about tough, strong women. It's a fantasy novel, but I think I'm going to have to accept that these kind of books are not for me. Now, I love fantasy and horror of a certain genre. So I love Anne Rice, I love Poppy Z. Bright, I love witches, I love vampires. I like my fantasy Wicked, I love fairy tales. This kind of sci-fi world building, I don't like Game of Thrones. So I always find these kind of high fantasy epic novels, there's very elongated fight scenes, there tends to be a lot of world building, there tends to be a lot of characters and clans and, you know, systems and explanations, and sometimes I don't enjoy it as much. And I feel like some of the character building gets lost. I love characters, I like stories that are very character driven as well, so I feel like the character building sometimes gets lost in the world building, and to be fair, in this one it isn't too bad. And like I said, if you like kind of kick-ass fighting women, these are girls, they no mercy, no remorse, they fight to the death, they are tough. So I did like that element, but I've read it, it's fine, it's a 3 stars, I will not be reading the rest of the series. You know, again, this is going to the charity shop. I hope, you know, if you're in the Brighton area and you love these kind of books, then go find it in the local charity shop, because I think if you like the genre, you'll like it a lot more than I did. But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to accept that it's just not really for me. So those were all of my books for the month. You'll be happy to know. So I'm just going to move on to two things that are like my favourite things for the month that have nothing to do with books. The first one is a perfume. So this over here is, God, it's so beautiful. So have a look at that bottle there. And it is Sinner. So the perfume is called Sinner, and it's by Kat Von D. And not only does this smell incredible, it smells beautiful, but if you are a vegan, like I am, this is completely cruelty-free and vegan. So it's not tested on animals, it doesn't contain any animal products, and actually, weirdly, for a perfume, that is quite a rare thing to be able to find. So, you know, whether you just like the smell of it, which I do, it's gorgeous, and you like the ethical component of it, and you're a vegan and you want to try something that is 100% vegan, I would definitely recommend this. It's beautiful. It kind of has, it sort of changes over time, so I would say a bit of an incensey smell. She also has a sister perfume called Saint, which is a white bottle, but, you know, I like this one. So that's definitely one of my favourite things for the month. And then my other favourite thing for the month is my tattoo. So I've been getting a sleeve done, and it's by a local Brighton artist called Sophie Sharp. Let's see if you can see my piggy, or I can't get my pig in. So this is a vegan themed sleeve, actually, that I'm having done by Sophie, and it is just, I'm loving it. It's like my favourite thing. I can't stop looking at the little animals. As you can tell, it's a work in progress, the colours going in, but Sophie is an extraordinary artist, and she's doing an amazing job on it, and I'm loving my little friends on my arm. So those are my my two favourite things for the month that have absolutely nothing to do with reading. I'm going to be back to do my TBR for October, and like I said, Halloween, I love it. So there's going to be a lot of Halloween themed stuff. I'm going to look a bit different. I'm going to be doing some, I think I'm going to be doing them all dressed up. Why not? I'm taking part in 3 YouTube bookathons as well. So I'm going to be TBRs for those. Yeah, just loads of autumn Halloween themed goodness coming up. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.